Hello, hello, and welcome. You are at the Coaches Lounge with yours truly, Barbara J. Beckley, and I am here to introduce you to some amazing, wonderful, spectacular, any kind of other adjective I can think of that's in a positive coaches, educators, and mentors that I bring onto this show. This is one of my signature shows that I really wanted to say, wait a minute, who is helping that person get to their stardom, I always say, or who is that person that's really getting them over that hump that's been really just aching them in their lives and trying to move forth maybe in their business or even in their personal life. Who is that person? Usually it's a coach or a mentor or somebody helping them push them up that mountain, right? And they don't get the love sometimes. The coach just move on to another person and they keep helping them out and they moved it. And that's what we do because I'm a coach too. And I totally get it. So I said, wait, I haven't seen a show that really gives that love to them. So I said, you know what? If I don't see it, let me create one, right? That's what they always say. If you don't see it, create it. With that, that's what I've done. And I'm really happy to say I want to celebrate today before I bring on this amazing, amazing coach. I'm celebrating 7 years doing this show. Wow. And then I was just looking at all the episodes that I had. I said, okay, now that I've been doing this for 7 years, how many episodes are there? And I looked at it, it was 2,500 episodes. I was like, oh my God. And then I thought about it, I said, wow, I got some stamina. I was able to really do these shows and be with these wonderful coaches. So I'm thinking now, without knowing all these wonderful coaches coming in, I was like, maybe we should have something really special, like a big anniversary and bring them all together and do a networking. See, and I'm thinking that you can come in and meet the different coaches, just like you're going to meet one today. So always remember, and I want to give you a disclaimer here. Make sure you have a pen and a piece of paper right now, because you really want to get to know this individual. His name is Mark Light, and his last name tells it all, because he is a lighthouse for the world. He's the founder and CEO of Mark Light Group, right? And what I like, what he does is he's really real. And he's really connected with the people that he works with, because that's what gets you to the next level. You have to be connected with your coaches or mentors, whoever you're talking to. And he does that in every session that he has, with every consultant that he has. He's just amazing. And he's resilient. And he's going to talk a little bit about that. So I'm going to get out the way here. And I'm going to make sure that we get a chance to meet and get to know Mark. And with that said, we'll be right. And we are back. If you're just tuning in, this is the Coaches Lounge. As you can see at the top, Barbara J. Beckley is your host. But the biggest spotlighting is the person that's sitting right next to me in the virtual room is Mark Light. I want to just really, before we even get started talking to this wonderful, wonderful, wonderful human being, is to thank him for coming on the show. So Mark, thank you so much.
Thank you, Barbara. Good to be with you.
Yeah. So, I always like to start off by, I first want to say, because I always ask every person that comes to the Coaches Lounge, if you were to name this show, what would you name it? And Mark said, From Pain to Purpose. And I was like, when I was thinking about that, I said, wow, that would be an amazing show, because we all go through. I mean, anybody, you can reach everybody, Mark, with that. That would be a good catch-all show, just to let you know.
Yeah, we all have had our share of painful experiences in life. And
yeah. And it, gets us to the other side, like you said, right?
Yeah, a lot of lessons that come from those types of things, if you handle it correctly.
Yeah. There you go. That was the catcher. That's the catch-all. If you handle it, if you make that determination. So with that, Mark, saying pain to purpose, I like always to pull back the curtain before we even talk about, what you're doing successfully right now. How did you get there? I mean, what made that like turn in your life that said I needed to build this and do this for other people?
Yeah, so I'm a person who I think almost anybody that knows me well will say I've had my share of adversity in my life. A lot of it self-imposed, self-inflicted, I guess I should say. But most recently, in the last 25 years of my life, a lot of health setbacks and that type of thing. So I've sort of learned baptism by fire, and I wasn't really sure for really most of my life that really what my life purpose was. And I was being actually interviewed about 10 years ago. I was in the midst of a cross-country bicycle ride that I was doing for a fundraiser for a little girl that needed surgery. And the gentleman doing an on-camera interview had just set me up and was doing just sort of a soundbite dump is what it was. It's just trying to get sound bites out of me. And at some point during that whole just my rambling, I said, we all have painful things that happen to us in life. But if you can take a painful experience or something painful that you've had and use that as a means to help someone else with their pain, you turn your own pain into a blessing. And he stopped the recording and he said, that's a graduate level soundbite. Now, that soundbite, even though he gave me such kudos, it never made the final cut of the video. But as I thought about it being, validated like that, I thought, wow, okay, that sort of was a moment of self-discovery that was what I wanted to dedicate my life to.
Yeah. Definitely. And please, I hope you're using that soundbite wherever you go. I mean, that's like a good quote for you that you're original.
Yeah, quite a bit. I do wear that one out. Yeah.
But a good wear out, Mark, a good wear out, because that helps. Like I said, even with the title that you gave me, it's powerful. And I like, because what you're saying is how you really connect with what you went through. Because I know you mentioned some health things, and I know just in the last 2 years for myself, I never thought I was going to be dealing with like back to back. I mean, it hit like 4 times different health things for me, to the point where I had to take a little, I call it sabbatical or whatever, for a few months to get myself together, because I said, I'm no good if I'm all broke down. I really felt that way. I felt I was just all broke down. And
I understand that.
Yeah. It did, Mark. I was like, oh my God. So, but like you said earlier, if you let all that setback get to you to the point where you don't make it purpose and move forward in it, then you can just linger in it and sit in it. And that's not me. And I know definitely that's not you. So, yeah.
Well, it did used to be me. And that whole concept of moving forward through the difficulty is the resilience that I talk about. And it's a life skill. It's a critical life skill. I mean, just try to get through life, a life that's going to throw a lot at you, that is adverse, is difficult, is painful. Try to get through that life without resilience, and you find out how important it is. But it is just that. It's a skill. It's like a muscle. It does need to be developed. And I say that as a person who, for the first 2/3 or so of my life, I didn't have that as a skill. And so I consider myself now having been on, or I'm on the other side of it. But now I can say I've been on both sides of it.
Yeah. And again, that's what makes you very powerful when you're working with people, because there's a lot of us, and some of us don't admit it. Some of us do. It depends on the person. I've learned to admit it, because it's like, it doesn't make sense to hide what I'm going through, or the hurt, the pain, whatever. I always tell people, let's call it out first, put it all out there. Let's deal with it. Because if you don't deal with it, and you've probably seen this with people maybe that you work with, if you don't deal with, okay, I didn't have the resilience, or I didn't have the courage at the time, but if you hide it and then you're trying to work with them, it makes it a little bit more difficult, because that something's still there. Right.
Yeah. No, that's a really good point, Barbara. First of all, there's a lot to be said for making peace or making friends with your demons like that. And the other thing, and I talk about this quite a bit, I've talked about it in my book, And that is, and as a sales trainer, I talk about it, and I say, people will be drawn to you if you channel or embrace your vulnerability. People are very drawn to that, and having a supportive network around yourself is one of the major keys to being a resilient human being. And one of the best ways to cement or solidify, I mean, the best relationships that I've ever seen be built, and I'm talking about from the standpoint of quickly being built, being very deep relationships, and ones that stand the test of time, are ones where vulnerability plays a very key role. Now, there's a balance to be struck, because vulnerability can very easily morph into whining and complaining, trying to turn your circle, whether it's your online circle or whatever, into your therapy people. And that takes it to a step, that's a bridge too far. But truly, being vulnerable is one of the great underrated powers in life.
Yeah. It is. And I'm glad that you put that I always say little disclaimers that you put where, sometimes you can go to the extreme, and then also it's kind of that kind of session, like you said. But I like how you said that, vulnerability is the key, because then you really just get to dig for yourself. Because I always tell you, you got to start with you first before you even try to think about going out there doing, helping, whatever. Because I always tell myself, Mark, that I don't want if I have bad energy or whatever's going on with me, I don't want that to seep into other people. That I have accountability as a person that's trying to help somebody or a coach. So I'm like, no. Let me deal with like you said earlier, demons first before I start going out there, because I don't want that scattered anywhere if I can avoid it.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And, in an age where we have social media, where everybody, it seems like, is wearing a mask and playing a role, and then now you have AI, it's incredible how powerful just being authentic is in this day and age, especially where it just seems to be it's kind of a rare trait when you get right down to it, the way our culture has evolved.
I know it kind of flip-flop, hasn't it? Because when you mentioned, I'm not gonna go down the AI road because I want to talk more about what you do, but just when you mention that, I see things all the time, and it's so real now, Mark, where it's like, okay, was that person really? And come to find out, it's not. And I was like, whoa. I said, we're getting to this level where I can't even figure out it's a real person talking. Yes,
yeah,
so a real person that's talking. Yeah.
Authentic connection is becoming a kind of a rare commodity.
Yeah. So that's why we got to put it out more, and I'm glad that you still use that, what we both do, to make sure that I don't care what's out there, what technology, robots, whatever they're going to be doing, because I know it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. We still are humans, and we still have to communicate and be real with ourselves. So I'll always be in that moment, that zone, no matter what. Yeah. So I was going to say, Mark, this is a nice discussion, because I know you deal with sales mostly, right? And helping people in that area. I want to hear from you, because every time I find a guru, and I'm calling you guru.
Oh, no.
Yes.
Oh, anything but a guru. Next thing, you'll be calling me a motivational speaker.
No. This guru. I got in trouble telling motivational speaker. So I got hit on the hand for that. But guru, I feel like I can say, because this is your lane of expertise.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah. Okay, good. So put that hat on. I was always curious, because this is my vulnerability right now. Okay. Sales is not my forte. I always think, every time I think of sales, I equal it to salesperson on a car, selling a car. Because I hate when I have to go buy a car, because it's like, okay, it seems like I get my whole mind together before I go buy a car, because I'm already going to be upset. Because as soon as I walk in that door, and this, we all been there, be it online now or in person, it's like, as soon as they come to me, Mark, and I feel like, and I'm not like that. I have to be a different character. As soon as they come to me, I'm like, leave me alone. stop it, because I know what they're about to do. So I really believe with what you're probably doing and doing the transfer, helping other people deal with that in a group atmosphere or just consulting people. How do you get rid of kind of that, that little, because a lot of people have that little bad taste when it comes to sales sometimes too.
Yeah, it's funny. I talk to so many salespeople and have in a 35-year career, not all of that in sales training, virtually all of it as a sales representative myself. And I talk to all kinds of people who are in sales or entrepreneurs. And I would also say you are much better at sales than you probably give yourself credit for. But that being said, I will, like be in a room full of people and I'll ask how many of you consider yourself to be in sales, and every hand will go up. And then I'll say, okay, now keep your hand up if you enjoy being sold to yourself, and every hand goes right back down. And so there's two thoughts when you just said when you use the car lot analogy, and oh boy, next to having a life insurance salesman in the room, which I can say that because I am a 20-year veteran of that industry as well. But that's the universal dread right there. But two thoughts immediately came to mind when you were talking about that, Barbara. One is, just like we said, we all as Americans, we love to buy things. We hate to be sold things. And there's a gap right there as far as that concept goes. And the second thing that came to mind is, inherently speaking, and I think you really cut to the heart of this with what you said, sales is an uncomfortable, when you get right down to it, sales is an uncomfortable conversation. Thing is, it's uncomfortable for both seller and buyer most of the time. And as a sales trainer, what I'm trying to do is bridge those two items right there. Number one is, let's take the salesness out, or the salesiness out of selling, and let's just have and it goes right back to where our conversation started with authenticity. If you can just have a real, authentic conversation, you take that element out of the selling, and it becomes a much more comfortable conversation for both buyer and seller. So yeah, you bring up a couple of good points with what you said there.
Thank you. And I'm glad that you brought that up, because I was thinking as you were saying that, going back to, I'm just using an example so you can use me as an example while you're talking about your genius, that I always like to say, Mark, when people are trying to sell to me, I'm going back to the car thing because that's like, just tell me up front what's going on with, what I got to do, and I'm going to use an example. Okay. And like you said, being vulnerable, and this will help other people, the audience out there. And I'm just using an example with me. Maybe my credit is not good. So if my credit is not, not that good, and I tell the salesperson that, and they're like, well, we'll see if we can run the numbers and and then they come back, well, and then you say, well, I told you before, well, let's see what we'll do. Then they go back and back. So now you're there at the sales place for over 3 or 4 hours. And then what really gets upsetting is for the buyer when you don't walk out with anything. Because basically they found out they can't do anything for you, and they probably kind of knew that way kind of at the beginning. But I give people more like respect if they just come out at the beginning part. To me, that would be a good salesperson to me, because then I'll say, okay, where, if you can work with me, where can you, or you can't, okay, I get it. So yeah, I think being just more open a little bit,
Well, yeah, open and cards. I mean, so, and I'm speaking from the perspective of somebody who trains salespeople. There are levels of everything, and honesty is one of them. And I say, look, be honest with your customers, but just like if you were in a legal proceeding and you had an attorney representing you, you'd want your attorney to be honest, but not foolishly honest. Yeah. So there's like everything, there's a balance to be struck there. Yeah. And the other thing that I think you hit on there, Barbara, with what you were talking about, like, using the credit issue as an example, old school sales, which we think of car salesmen and the just a lot of things come to most people's mind there. And it is a lot of, picturing a person that gets out of bed and eats a bowl of rusty nails for breakfast and goes to work to try to force a bunch of people to buy things that they may or may not want to buy, and jamming square pegs into round holes. And that credit analogy that you just used, that's one of the things that I harp on a lot, is qualifying people. Ask people questions, because there's no point in wasting your time as a salesperson or the customer's time if they just cannot buy, whether it's lack of money, lack of credit, or lack of anything in there. If they're not your prospect, move on to somebody that is. That's where the dread of salespeople comes in, is for generations now, we've had salespeople putting pressure and trying to force people to buy where there's just not a sale there. And that's where the pressure comes from. That's where people clear out a room really fast by, somebody yelling salesman in the house faster than if you pulled the fire alarm.
I'm so glad that you're training them different than that. But yeah, it really would help. And even to the point, even if it takes longer, tell me, okay, Barbara, it's going to take 2 hours. Are you okay with that? You want a cup of coffee? You want to get something to eat? Because this might take a while. Even that would help.
Thank you very much for saying that, because that's the other thing that so often buyers and sellers, when you get into the sales arena, so to speak, there's no rules established to the game. And it happened a lot in my career when I would show up and I thought the meeting agenda was one thing, and the person sitting on the other side of the table or the other side of the desk thought it was something completely different. So one of the things I coach people on is, at the very start of the meeting, set the rules of engagement, decide on come to an agreement that the time that it's going to take is going to work for both parties, what is going to be covered, and what are going to be the outcomes of this meeting, if any. Even if it is, we shake hands and we part friends and just say, we're not going to do business. But establish those rules on the front end, so there is none of that angst that goes on, like you were just talking about there.
Yeah, because there's been a few times, and first of all, I don't want to bash those sales car.
By all means, bash the salespeople. We all deserve.
Mark, I came to 2 out of my whole lifetime that I really respect, and they did it the way that you would do it, right? To the point where they did it so well is that I referred another person to them. And they treated them well too, because they treated me, because they didn't force nothing. They was trying to look for things. They told me what was going on every step of the way. And see, that's all I asked. Well,
Barbara, you're hitting on one gem right after another there, because the one thing that I can speak for pretty much every salesperson since the beginning of time until the end of time, the one thing they cannot stand doing, the one thing we cannot stand doing, is the process of having to go out and look for our next customer. That's drudgery. It's terrible work. We have to do it. But the best way to not have to do it is to do your sales process the right way, so that people do exactly what you did. And that's refer all their friends. So I don't have to go out and look for my next customer. My loyal current and past customers bring me those people.
Yeah. And it's already kind of a small win already, because they're referring you and they're already saying, well, this Mark is amazing. You need to go to him, tell him I sent you, and that, already half the sales kind of like already locked in a little bit, because they're like, oh, okay, let me go to Mark. As soon as they walk in the door, where's Mark?
Yeah.
I need to talk to Mark. So Mark, I wanted to say, just a wrap up, and I want to make sure you have some time to leave us any golden nuggets. Going back to resilience, because I know that's one of the biggest things that you take on when you are training and coaching. So just to give us a little scenario of that to share with us.
Yeah. So I think the best thing I could say is, and again, within the context of talking about sales training, of course, I teach techniques and sales techniques and things that work in the real world and all that kind of thing. Everybody does that. But what I found in a lot of years, both being on the end of receiving training, but also giving it, is, I don't know if I could put a percentage to it, but probably somewhere north of 90% of all training never actually gets used. And so what I'm doing, because the person receiving the training, the student, oftentimes doesn't feel confident. Maybe they have some issues with resilience. So I refer to my sales training as sales resilience training, because there are a lot of things that go on in the space between the years that don't include. Usually when people struggle or fail at sales, it's not because they didn't have the right skills, it's because they didn't have the right mindset to either overcome the rejection, the fear of rejection, and all the other fears that go with sales, or the flip side of it, and sometimes even worse, even more vulnerable, is you become a victim of your own success. Big swings in income, and boy, when you have a successful week or month or time period, then all of the activity that got you there seems to cease, and people end up heading to the golf course and that type of thing. So it becomes an exercise in getting out of your own head, and don't be a victim of human nature, both on the good side and the bad side.
Wow. I thank you for sharing that, because I didn't think of it like that. So you're right. It can be both. You can do both ways on that end. So now, Mark, I want to ask real quickly, what kind of like individuals that you look for your like being in part of your, of your coaching?
Yeah, I most of my professional background has been in financial services. I was a financial advisor for about 20 years. And so if I talk to somebody in that realm, I almost automatically know that I can help them. But really, it's anybody who ideally has to go out and find their own prospects, customers, that type of thing. Ideally in a business to business sales setting. That's where most of my training is most effective, not always, but more of the what I think of as I stop short of the enterprise selling. Like, for example, somebody who's on a sales team for Boeing selling 747, they don't even 747s anymore, but selling massive things like that are team selling. That's not within my wheelhouse. But what is something where we're talking about a larger ticket, where somebody's selling something a little bit more expensive than a very small widget that costs $10. But strictly, or I mean, mainly in the business to business selling arena.
Now, does it matter what type of business it is that you help people with the sales, or you can kind of really just conquer all in that little mid thing that you mentioned?
Yeah, it really doesn't matter. Now, the first thing I do, obviously, is I sit down and find out a little bit about the client's business and what it is they're struggling with, and I determine, first of all, is that even going to be a fit? Because it becomes a very nuanced conversation, and there are some situations where I say, hey, I am just not a fit for what it is that you're looking for, and that could either be where you are mentally and from a skill perspective in your sales journey, or it could be just the fact that you're in an industry. Some industries are a little more complicated in some ways than others, and that's where that conversation becomes important. And there are certain situations where you have multi parties involved, and I have to say, not always. In some cases, like for example in trades, where there are insurance companies involved in that decision-making process, yes, I can be a good fit in those types of multi-party situations. But like I said, in very large multi-million-dollar sales where there are huge teams that all must be involved in the selling and buying process, yeah, I'm not the guy for that.
Yeah, and I like to ask those questions because, again, this is a part of having you shine. And one of the things that have you shine is for people to know what type of individuals or businesses that you work with, so they see that, oh, wait a minute, I'm that person. I need to talk to Mark. That's why I like to bring that out, because a lot of times people don't understand the niche of a person that they work with or people that they work with. And it gets kind of, a little muddy. And then you're like, okay, I don't know what they do, how they do it. So I'm glad you made it really distinctive of who you work for, what you don't really do, because that brings in the people that you can help and that will, be connected to you. So thank you so much for letting us know that, because that's going to help out a lot with our audience. So with that, I don't want to I know everybody's like, okay, where's the other golden nugget Mark's going to give? He's going to give it right now. I'm going to get myself down and we'll give him some time, and I'll be back, and we'll make sure you get his contact information, because you're going to want to talk to Mark after this interview. So I'll be right back, and I'll let Mark leave some good golden nuggets. Okay, there we go. Yes, so we're going to let Mark leave some golden nuggets. I'm going to take myself down because I want to make sure he has the full screen there, so you can get everything else that he's been talking about, because it's been some really good things. I told you earlier, I hope you had your pen and your paper. So I'll be right back, and then we'll wrap up and make sure that we give you his contact information. Be right back.
When you're thinking of long-term sales success, and I'm talking long-term sales success, think of two things. First of all, think of a three-legged stool and think of the word ACT. And ACT is an acronym that stands for activity, confidence, and technique. All three of those are required to work together in order to achieve long-term sustained success in sales, where you actually enjoy your job and you make a lot of money at it.
I could have gotten more. I love it. I love it. I was like, I'm sitting there like this, taking notes myself. I was like, wait a minute, I got to go back up, don't I? See, Mark, I would have left you up there. You've been doing it. You would have been going on. Yeah, but I know I can't. I mean, I got to
get me started, Barbara. You made
I'm telling you, I was ready. And I know the audience was like, oh, wait a minute. What, he said, a three-stool thing? Yeah, that's good. Because as soon as you said that, I was like, ooh. So, yeah. So see what you can get when you talk to Mr. Mark Light. I told you his last name tells how much he's a lighthouse to the world. So thank you, sir, for coming on the Coaches Lounge. As I always say, once you're on the Coaches Lounge, you're family to me. Anything that you're doing, if you have a book coming out, if you have something special going on, bring it to the Coaches Lounge, and we will talk about it so people can understand, that they need to contact you. Now, with the contact, let me make sure that this is put on the bottom. You can contact Mr. Mark. That's his email address, and then also he has his phone number there. Okay. So I'll leave it up there for a second. And I just want to again thank you, Mark, for coming on, taking your time out, because I know it takes time to do these interviews. And that's why I like to say, I told him before we even started, everybody, he can be selfish today. And I'm glad that he was, and make sure that this was his time to shine. And like I tell everybody else, this is what it's all about when it comes to the Coaches Lounge. Spotlighting experts, advice for life and in business, because everybody's original in their own world. They have their own gifts. You just have to put it out there, but always understand that it's okay to get help. And that's why I always bring the coaches and everybody else here to say they're willing to help. They want to help. They want to see you succeed. So with that, Mark, thank you so much again. And we will see everybody on the next Coaches Lounge. You take care.
Thanks, Barbara. Appreciate it.